I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing over and over. At first, I thought maybe someone was trying to wish me a happy birthday. Maybe a friend remembered. Maybe it was a long-lost aunt sending a nice message like, "I hope today feels special." But when I picked up my phone, it was none of that. The message was from my dad. It said, "Sold your laptop. Your brother needs an iPhone. Be grateful we feed you." That was it. No greeting. No kindness. Just those cold words. "My name is Lauren, and wherever you are, please listen to this. On my birthday, I didn't get a cake. I didn't get a hug. I didn't even get a simple happy birthday. What I got was something stolen from me again. And this time, they didn't realize they were messing with the wrong person. That laptop wasn't just any laptop. It was mine. I worked hard for it. I saved money from tutoring and from working part-time at the diner. It wasn't just a computer.
It was what helped me keep my scholarship.
It was my way to learn, to write, to connect with the world. It was my freedom. But to them, it was just something to sell so my brother could get a new phone. I stared at the message in silence. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then another message came. It said, "Also, you'll pay us $1,500 for college by Saturday." No explanation. No question. Just an order like I was some servant they owned. I sat up in bed. The blanket was still wrapped around my legs. For the first time in a long time, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a strange, empty feeling in my chest. It had happened again. My whole life, I had always come second to my brother. When I got into honors classes, my parents barely said a word. When my brother passed gym class, they threw him a celebration. When I brought home that laptop after working so hard for it, they only said, "Finally, you're starting to help out." But when he wanted a new iPhone, they took what I earned and gave it to him. I replied with 2 words, "No chance." 15 seconds later, another message popped up. It said, "Then get out. You're cut off." That was it. No talk. No apology. No care. Just like that, I was no longer part of the family. I stood up slowly. I packed my things without making a sound. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I had been expecting something like this. I had been saving and planning just in case. What they didn't know was that I was ready. I was stronger than they thought. And I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I was still the quiet, obedient girl. I didn't argue. I stayed silent when they treated me badly. I kept saying thank you for the little things they gave me. They had no idea what I had been planning for months. I had slowly been moving my savings into a private bank account. I had changed the password to the college tuition portal so they couldn't get in. I had also already arranged a place to live through my scholarship mentor, just in case I ever needed it. They didn't see it coming. But soon they would. I walked into the kitchen. No one else was home. The sink was full of dirty dishes. A banner that said "Happy Birthday Tyler" from last year still hung above the window, old and curling at the edges. I sat down at the table and took out a large brown envelope. I had written on it 4 weeks ago, "If they ever kick me out." Inside, I had put everything I needed to leave. There were printed bank statements, records of money I had taken out, and a letter I had written to his college saying I was no longer responsible for my brother's tuition. I had sent that email the night before. There was also a short letter. It said, "You didn't raise me.
You just used me.
This account is now empty. So am I of apologies." I put the envelope right in the middle of the table. Then I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. There was no loud music playing. Just the soft sound of the door clicking shut behind me and the cold air hitting my face. For the first time in years, I felt free. The next morning, I heard all about it. My brother was panicking. My mom was shouting. My dad was calling every number he could think of, trying to fix things. But it was too late. I was only 11 the first time they took something that was mine and gave it to my brother. I had won a blue digital camera in a school raffle. It was the first thing I had ever won. I loved it. I kept it in a shoebox under my bed. I took pictures of flowers, old family photo albums, and anything that made me feel like I could keep a moment safe forever. One day, the camera was gone. I looked everywhere. I asked my mom where it was. She didn't even look up from her phone. She just said, "Oh, we gave it to your brother. He needed it for a school project. Be grateful it's being used." That was her favorite thing to say. Be grateful we feed you. Be grateful you have a roof. Be grateful he's your brother. But she didn't want gratitude. She wanted silence. They called it parenting. But it wasn't love. It was control. By the time I was 13, I called it stealing. I knew not to say anything in the fridge was mine. My leftovers would be gone. My birthday presents were given to my brother. I only got allowance if I reminded them, and even then, I had to share it. He got birthday parties, driving lessons, new shoes just because he liked them. I got his old stuff and a quick pat on the back if I didn't complain too much. The worst part? He didn't even want most of it.
He was lazy, yes.
Spoiled for sure. But sometimes I saw it in his eyes, a bit of guilt, or maybe shame. When Dad handed him something and said, "We took this from Lauren for you." He never said no. That made him part of it too. When I won the science fair in middle school, they left early to go to my brother's basketball game. He didn't even play that night, just sat on the bench. Mom told me after, "You'll have more fairs." He never had another game. I stopped inviting them to things after that. By high school, I had learned the rules. Work quietly. Succeed without showing off. Pay for your own future. And most of all, never be better than your brother. Even when I got into a college prep program, they didn't ask what I needed. They only asked if my brother could join too. He couldn't. But that didn't stop them from asking me to tutor him. I did.
I even helped him write his college essay.
Then last year, he failed 2 classes and lost his scholarship.
Who did they call? Me.
Not to talk, not to explain, just to say, "Your brother needs to stay in school." Dad said, "We all have to make sacrifices." I asked, "When has he ever sacrificed anything?" He said nothing, because he couldn't name one thing. It wasn't just that I was ignored. I was useful. The one they could blame. The backup plan. The daughter they used when it was easy, then tossed aside when I said no. So when they sold my laptop, it wasn't just stealing. It was the final blow. Happy birthday, Lauren. You're still the supply room. But they forgot one thing. I had already stopped helping them. They thought I'd just accept it. The laptop they sold. The demand for $5,200. The birthday text that didn't even say my name. They thought I'd get angry for a bit. Cry in my room, then hand over the money and say, "It's fine. I understand." But the truth is, I stopped understanding a long time ago. I started getting ready for this months ago, right after they took $1,000 from my bank account without asking. Something changed in me. Not loud, but final. Like a quiet click when a door locks behind you. That night, I opened a new bank account, just in my name. I set up 3-step security. No paper mail. Then I began moving my money slowly. Small amounts at first, $95 here, $250 there. So they wouldn't notice. I closed my student account, sent my financial aid to the new one, and got a tutoring job online. They paid me through an app only I controlled. My family still thought they had access. They believed the old family account, the one used for my tuition and savings, was the only one I had. They didn't know it was empty, and that all that was left was a note I left in an envelope on the kitchen table. This account no longer exists, just like your control over my future. In that same envelope, I left a copy of the email I sent to my school's finance office. To whom it may concern, I, Lauren Roberts, officially remove myself as responsible for Adam Roberts' tuition, housing, or any other accounts. I am no longer a cosigner, and I will not send any more money. Documents attached. I also added a signed form, taking away my parents' access to my student account, and a copy of my approved request to move into a new apartment across town, paid for by a grant. Most of my things were already packed. My backup laptop, important documents, and the only photos I cared about, one with my high school mentor. No family in any of them. The night before I left, I slept like a rock. Not nervous, not scared. Just finished. They always thought they had control over me. But the truth is, they were only holding on to the version of me that I had already outgrown. I had left a long time ago. The real me was already gone. When I put that manila envelope on the kitchen table, it wasn't to be mean. It was a goodbye letter. Not a daughter saying, "Please see me," but a grown woman saying, "I saw everything, and I'm done." I left before the sun came up, took the bus to my new place, dropped my bags on the floor, sat on the mattress, cross-legged, and listened to the silence. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean, like I had finally closed a door I was never meant to open in the first place. The first call came at 5:55 a.m. I didn't answer. Then came the text. "Where is the money? Call me right now." "You think this is funny? Your mother is crying." I set my phone on the counter and made black coffee. By 6 a.m., my brother's name filled the screen. "Hey, what did you do?" "They're freaking out. They said you cleared the account. You need to call Dad." "I'm serious. My tuition's due today." I stir my coffee, watch the steam, listen to a kind of peace I never had in their house. At 6:32 a.m., Dad tried to FaceTime me. I declined, then declined again. He left a voicemail. His voice was calm, but fake. I knew that tone well. "You've made your point. Now grow up and fix it. Your brother needs that money." No apology. No, we went too far. Just fix it. Because that's who I always was to them. The fixer. The one who filled in the gaps. Made the payments.
Took the blame.
They never once asked how I was.
Not even now.
It took until 8:05 a.m. for them to realize I was serious. I wasn't hiding in my room. I was gone. They drove to my college apartment. I had already cleared it out the night before. Left the keys in the mailbox. Changed the lock. They called my friends, no one answered. They called my campus counselor. She pointed them to the student privacy policy. Then Dad messaged again. "This is betrayal. We raised you better than this." I almost laughed.
Raised me?
I raised myself, between borrowed textbooks and part-time jobs, while they treated my brother's birthdays like national holidays. By noon, I still hadn't replied. That's when the panic really started. "Just give us access to the account. That's all we need. Just the money. Then we'll talk." It was always about what they needed. They weren't upset because I left. They were upset because I took the control with me. For once, when they reached for the Lauren drawer, it was empty. My brother broke first. "Lauren, please. I'm screwed."
They told me you'd pay.
"You always pay." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time in my life, I typed without shaking. "Not anymore." He answered with 3 words. "They're losing it." And I believed him. Because that's what happens. When people who use others lose the one they depend on, they fall apart. I didn't block them. Not yet. I wanted them to feel it. What silence sounds like. When it's finally not coming from me. Because this time, I wasn't just quiet. I was done. The first real crack didn't come from yelling inside their house. It came from the outside, when their lies couldn't cover things anymore. My brother's tuition was due Saturday. I had already cut every legal tie to his account. No cosigner. No emergency contact. No backup payer. The school had all the documents. I triple-checked. So when the payment failed, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a delay. It was on purpose. By Tuesday morning, he was removed from his dorm. By Thursday, a notice went up on his student portal. Payment required to return. He didn't post anything publicly, not right away. But the news spread fast. The boy whose parents bragged about his bright future, whose sister always handled everything, suddenly wasn't enrolled. And I hadn't said a word. But silence, I've learned, makes noise. When people are used to you always saying yes. On Friday, he finally snapped. He posted a blurry photo on Instagram. A coffee shop table, a textbook, and a bitter caption. "Family will act like they support you. Until they don't. Abandonment is real." especially from the ones who owe you everything.
Oh,
I owed him. The girl who gave him her textbooks, fixed his essays, taught him how to handle money. I owed him. I didn't respond. But I wasn't the only one watching. My old high school English teacher, Mrs. Henry, a sharp, kind, fearless, she commented on the post. Funny how, when someone finally speaks the truth, the one who worked the hardest gets pushed aside. Now they're calling it abandonment. Mrs. Henry's comment stayed up for 17 minutes before my brother deleted the story. But it was too late. People started asking questions. A classmate messaged me privately. Didn't you used to do everything for your brother? He's acting like you just vanished. It doesn't add up. Another friend sent me a screenshot of my dad's old FB post, the one bragging about how his daughter was managing her brother's education like a second mother. That was just last year. Now they were calling me ungrateful.
but the proof didn't lie.
I had emails, bank records, screenshots, evidence of every dollar they pulled from me. And even though I hadn't posted anything, my silence said more than a post ever could. Because when someone always shows up, and then suddenly doesn't, people notice. That night, my mom called again, left a voicemail, soft, sweet, fake. You've made your point, sweetheart. Just come back. We'll talk it through. We're family. But I knew better. They didn't miss me.
They missed what I did for them.
Now that their story was falling apart, the golden child image, the perfect family act, they wanted their scapegoat back. To fix it.
To carry it.
To clean it up. Not this time. This time, the glass house cracked. And I wasn't the one holding the broom. By then, I knew they had read the envelope. My brother texted me. Was that letter necessary?
Yes, it was.
Not for them, for me. That envelope wasn't revenge. It was proof. A record. A goodbye to a childhood no one protected. Tucked inside, with all the bank papers and school forms, was one handwritten letter. Just one page. Folded. The ink smudged in one corner. It said, "To whoever still thinks they own me.
You didn't raise me. You used me.
You used my time, my energy, my silence. You turned everything I worked for into a gift for someone who didn't care, who only wanted more without earning it. You gave him everything. You took everything from me. And when I asked for one small thing, like keeping what I paid for, you told me to be thankful. You feed me. So, let's be clear. I fed myself. When I worked shifts while studying, when I taught myself how to budget, because no one else did, when I wrote 2 college essays, one for me, one for him, I was still doing everything. But now I'm done. I'm not your backup parent. I'm not your proof of good parenting, that you show off on FB when it suits you. I'm your daughter in name only. And, starting today, not even that. You don't get to demand from someone you ignored. You don't get to yell ungrateful at the person who kept your house running in silence. You don't get to take my voice, then beg me to speak. When everything starts to fall apart, you told me to leave.
Perfect.
Because I've never felt more at home than I do now outside your walls. Not out of hate. Out of healing. Lauren, that's what the envelope meant. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about the laptop. It was about putting the truth in front of them. In words.
In ink.
Clearly and finally. To show that the girl they raised to always bend had finally stood up. And this time, they didn't have the strength to push her down. My dad never replied. My mom called twice, then hung up. And my brother? He posted a gym selfie 3 days later, with the caption, "Can't trust anyone these days. But at least I still have me." I looked at it for a second, then closed the app. Because that was the point. He does still have himself. And for the first time, he has to stand on that and only that. No more lifeline. No more quiet sister taking the blame. No more invisible engine pushing him forward. He was exposed. And me? I was finally seen. Even if they never said it. Even if they never will. Because when you leave the truth on the table, sometimes the loudest thing in the house is the silence that follows. I didn't run away. I walked out. There's a difference. Running means fear. Running means panic. But walking is a choice. The day I walked away from that house, that family, that endless cycle of control pretending to be care, I didn't look back. My new apartment wasn't fancy. A mattress on the floor, one chair, a kitchen that needed cleaning. But it was mine. Every inch of it untouched by their needs, their rules, their guilt. And for the first time in my life, I let out a real breath. Not a quick one. A deep one. One that reached the parts of me I hadn't felt since I was a kid. I worked weekends at a clinic, finished the semester on time, and started therapy, paid for with a student wellness grant. In my first session, my therapist asked, "What would healing look like to you?" I said, "Freedom." She nodded and asked, "What kind?" I smiled and said, "The kind where I don't jump when my phone buzzes." 3 weeks later, I turned off my notifications. For weeks after that, I started sleeping better. One night, I bought myself a cake. Nothing fancy, just a plain vanilla cake with one candle. It was 3 months after my birthday, but I didn't care. I lit the candle, took a bite. No family, no fake smiles, no gifts being taken and given to someone else. Just me and my birthday, the real one, the one that belonged to me and no one else. That same night, I applied for an internship across the country. A research program I once told myself I couldn't do because it would take me too far from my family. Now, that was the point. I hit submit. A week later, I got the call. I was accepted. I screamed. I cried. Then I laughed so hard it hurt. Not because of the program, but because I realized something I hadn't told anyone. And it felt perfect. I wasn't doing it to prove anything. I wasn't trying to get praise. I was finally building a life that was just for me. The next morning, I got a letter in the mail from one of my old professors. She had always pulled me aside and said, "You're stronger than you think." In her letter, she wrote, "Lauren, you were never lost. You were just stuck in a house that never saw the map you were holding." I pinned that letter to my wall, right above the desk where I plan my future. New city, new job, new version of me. Not the fixer, not the scapegoat, not the sister who was expected to give up everything for a brother who never even said thank you. I wasn't the girl who stayed. I was the woman who left. 7 months later, my name was called in a packed lecture hall. I walked up to get a certificate for academic leadership and research excellence. Lauren Roberts. The claps were real. Earned. Not the forced applause of family. Not pity. Just people who saw the work, not the drama. Someone snapped a photo as I smiled and held the award. I didn't post it, but someone else did. A student I had mentored during the program. They posted the photo with a caption, "This woman is the reason I stayed in STEM. Strongest person I know." The post made its way around. A few people tagged me, a few shared it. Then somehow, it showed up on my brother's feed. He left one comment. "Congrats." No emoji. No sarcasm. Just that. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. Because by now I had nothing to prove. No lies to fight against. No space left in my mind for people who once lived there rent-free. Later that day, my mom messaged me. "Your brother misses you. We all do. It's time to come home. Family is family." I stared at the message. Then I deleted it. Not to be mean, but to protect my peace. Because now I understood what cutting off really meant. They thought they were cutting me off because of money, but I was cutting them off from access. Access to my time, my energy, my forgiveness whenever they wanted it. They wanted control. What I gave them instead was a legacy, one my future self would thank me for. A life built on boundaries, not blind loyalty. The letter I left on the table that day wasn't a tantrum. It was a goodbye to the version of me they treated like their personal savings account. And now, I'm not just the girl who survived it all. I'm the woman who planned her way out. There's a photo on my desk now. It's not of my family. It's of my hand holding a scalpel, standing beside a group of other young women in lab coats. The ones I now mentor. The ones who tell me, "You make me feel like I belong here." And that's the only family I ever needed. They sold my laptop. They stole my birthday. They thought they were taking my future. And I let them think that. But what I left on that table wasn't a breakdown. It was a blueprint. Because when I walked out, I didn't just leave. I ended everything they thought they still controlled.